Hmm. So what can I tell you about Second Spring?
So, what I would like to start off with asking you is that, I mean, right now, menopause, perimenopause is a hot topic, and there are quite a lot of books coming out at this time. What makes Second Spring different
Okay.
to what
Well,
is already out?
first of all, I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick that there are quite a lot of books about menopause coming out now. Because have you seen the number of books about diet and losing weight there are all the time? You know, so that comparatively, there is a lot of stuff about exercise and about weight and weight loss, and almost nothing about menopause. So there are probably four books about menopause being, visibly being published. There's Davina's book and there's various other ones. Um, but it's just remarkable. It's noticeable that there is more talk about menopause. And most of the talk is negative. So most of it is fear based. I mean, awareness is good, right? You know, in the previous 10 years, we didn't really talk about it at all. We didn't really know what perimenopause was. But now what's happening as it becomes more spoken about is that there's more fear, basically. It just seems to feed the fear. And nearly every headline that I come across on the topic is saying it's going to hurt, it's awful, this person is trying to kill themselves, we're in so much pain. And it's, yeah, my heart kind of caves in. And that doesn't mean that we don't have challenge. But what I experienced and what I witnessed in the people around me and my clients, in these aren't sort of like clever woo-woo people. These are kind of like ordinary people, really. Is that while there are challenges, there is also growth. There is a potential for growth, and that menopause seems to be calling us to pay attention to our bodies and pay attention to the earth in a way that in our younger years we didn't. And that is, essentially that's what the book is about. It's calling in trust in our bodies, it's calling in trust in the cyclical nature of life, and trust that we're not broken. We're not bust and falling apart and in need of fixing. It's much more to do with the surrounding marinade that we're sitting in, that is toxic for us. If we've been overgiving and doing all the emotional labor and putting ourselves last and getting more and more depleted through our 30s and 40s and 50s, then what kind of outcome do you think we're going to have in our 60s and 70s, and if we're lucky, our 80s? Really. So I have the not particularly radical notion that we should be kinder to ourselves and then we'd have more fun. Ta-da! It's so simple. But of course it's not, because we find it hard to be kind to ourselves. One of the things that is really wonderful about it is there is a medicine circle at the center of it, and this is the process that was taught to me by Red School. And I'll have been a therapist for 30 years next month, and I've never met anything as profound and as gentle as this process. And because it's Red School and it's about spirituality, it lives in a particular, addresses a particular market, I would say, a particular clientele. And what Second Spring's doing is putting it slap in the mainstream. And my desire is to see Second Spring by the checkout in Tesco, so it's just completely accessible to everybody. And the whole book has been de-wooed. That's actually an actual word.
I do love that about your work, Kate, that you do have that capacity to hold the esoteric, the spiritual, with the very practical. And what I would put to you with what you're saying about you know, the book, The Medicine Circle, what's the implication of creating a wider conversation around this? Like what I see you're doing is that it's almost like you're zooming out and you're allowing people to see a much bigger picture in a more in a very pragmatic, understandable way. So what do you think would happen to society if this conversation can go on like that?
Okay, well, first, I think having a broader, seeing things from a little objectivity, from seeing ourselves from a slightly, with as little space around what we're experiencing is always helpful. You know, and yes, we are often called to feel the texture of our body sensation or our feeling or our inner critics or whatever, our inner life. But it's also really helpful to have a bit of space and to go, oh, look at that, to have it to, and that helps us to engage that curiosity, that slightly, you know, the wiser part of ourselves. We might have many different versions of that. And I think that also operates in society as well, because it's not just, I mean, I'm in second spring, but it's not just women in their 40s and 50s who are affected by menopause, because there are menopause people who are our bosses or our hairdressers and the post person and our sisters and our mothers and our children, you know. So there's this thread of kind of, yeah, we're entirely wrapped in it. And when we can allow the people in menopause to soften and to rest and to go into themselves and to have that more autumnal, wintry, reflective, more restful experience, then we can give it to ourselves too. You know, it's a two-way thing. I don't know, what was the question you asked again? I've forgotten.
Well, like what will happen? Well, how do you see it if the conversation can go to a wider audience in a way that can be in that way that you do so beautifully, in keeping the more esoteric but also bringing in the very practical?
Yeah, I just think people could be kinder to themselves. And, you know, and ultimately, like really zooming out, what has to change is stuff like access to childcare, wage parity, you know, pensions, housing, job opportunities. You know, it's about that, because women are at a disadvantage, we're working ourselves so hard to deplete it.
That makes it sound quite political to me.
It does, rather, doesn't it?
Yeah. And you know what, something else that I wanted to ask you was about how menopause can become another thing that is so polarized, and that whole I know when we stay in polarization, we forget about the bigger picture, like what you were just talking about, like the political aspect of it. So what are your thoughts around how it has become such a polarized subject?
Yeah, I've been thinking quite a lot about this recently, because it's, you know, in menopause, it seems to become really a hot topic. You know, do you take HRT or not? You know, and if you go in with one particular attitude into a group of people who have the other side, then there's a lot of kind of aggression and anger and competition and stuff. And it's not just, you know, it's not just in menopause. This happens in pretty much all aspects of women's health, with breastfeeding, bottle feeding, in birth. God, I'm so glad that I'm not working with pregnancy and birth. It's insane. The amount of, you know, did you have a cesarean? Did you not? You know, celebrities lying about having cesareans because they felt they had failed. You know, and it's really because historically and continually we don't have agency over our life. We don't feel the agency over our lives, so our bodies become politicized. And I think that menopause, again, this is getting, now I don't have to write about easy doable practices. I'm like, right, okay, bring it on. Our bodies are politicized. And then, and about weight and size and race and, it's a very political thing. And it's a uniquely feminine thing. And I think that's because we historically haven't had agency over ourselves. And second spring is, I'm bringing it back to, so I don't ramble off into pointy fingered rage about it all, which would be fine. Second spring, I really tried to make it inclusive, to bring in things that will be meaningful, whether you're taking whatever kind of medication you're taking at any time, or whatever kind of modality you're using at any time or not, there will be something there for you. And one of the things I particularly like about it, which I only really realized when I actually had the book in my hands, was that there's lots of different things in it. Like there's blocks of text, and then there's lumps of quotes from real people's experience, and then there's little aphorisms, and there's little practices, and they're all in different kind of fonts that makes them different. So, for people with short attention spans and no energy, it's really great, because if you're like reading this, like, oh God, Kate, she's just banging on again about this, like, I'm really sick of this, then your eye can just kind of seek into a nice little aphorism. You go, oh, well, that's very nice. I'll put that on the fridge. Or a quote, or some, there's quotes from ordinary people, which they just blow me away. And in the book, some of you will have copies. In the book, the brilliant formatting, they've put them in capitals with masses of space around them, and this has the effect of validating experience. And if there's one thing that is absolute magical medicine, it is hearing that we're not alone, that we share an experience of feeling lost or despair, and we can kind of allow or accept more of that vulnerability within ourselves.
I love the sound of that.
Yeah, it looks really good. Yeah.
So the fact that it's you've chosen the title Second Spring. Now, I know that Davina McCall has recently called her 50s, has coined that phrase herself, of like called her 50s the second spring.
Okay, it's the halo moment. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, so when I get really excited, to stop me from jumping around the room, I'm going to put my halo on. Okay, I'll take it off.
So again. There it is. Spring is
because yes,
going global.
Davina McCall did use that expression, and it was written up. Either way, it doesn't really matter, because she's so mainstream. She's on the telly wearing sparkly dresses and hosting telly shows, and she is reframing postmenopausal experience. And we don't have to look like her in sparkly dresses with a washboard stomach and da-di-da, but it's actually happening, and that this takes it away from you and me, Jane, sitting in a room going, bloody hell, or sitting in circles going, God, you two, in that sort of small rooms, in small communities, and right out there into the mainstream. So it's really happening.
And it's so good to see that term second spring getting out there as well. How did you come to use that phrase?
Well, it's a Chinese medicine term, and it was really because through my work with Leora Leboff, who I hope is here somewhere, we've worked together for about 8 years. And having trained at Red School, we would do these medicine circles, in a room with people moving and feeling their bodies, and a somatic practice, a deeply somatic practice. and they go through menopause, and then we go, oh, what do we do next? You know, and I think that that wasn't just us. That's a cultural thing. You know, we think as a mainstream culture, we think about menopause, and then we think, well, then we're old, or what is that? And it just seemed obvious to us as we went along and we worked together that there was a second cycle. And I owe the editor Kate Fox the credit for calling the book Second Spring. I was going to call it something else, but yeah, that was hers. Thank you, Kate.
Well, I love that title.
Yeah, I do.